The year is 1096. Western Europe stands on the brink of monumental change. The First Crusade is beginning, the power of the Roman Pope is reaching unprecedented heights, and all of this is a result of the emergence of a new Roman Empire in the heart of Europe. Hello everyone, my name is Dymitr, and in this video, using the strategy game Age of History 3, I'll tell you about how the Holy Roman Empire came to be, how it's connected to Rome, whether a state called the Kingdom of Germany ever exists, and much more. I hope you'll find it interesting. But before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it motivates me to create new videos for you. I'll also leave a link to my previous video dedicated to Germany, so enjoy the video. So, after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD, Europe plunged into an era we know as the Dark Ages or the Early Middle Ages. Vast territories once controlled by Rome saw the rise of barbarian kingdoms, including the kingdoms of the Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Franks, and Lombards. In the absence of unified authority and stable governmental structures, Europe became a battleground of constant conflicts and migrations of peoples. The first to seriously recall Rome was Charlemagne. Before this, he had conquered much territory in Europe, and in the autumn of the year 800, he traveled to the capital of the once mighty Roman Empire. There, on 25th December, during the festive Mass at St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Leo unexpectedly approached Charlemagne and placed the imperial crown upon his head. All the Franks and Romans present in the cathedral unanimously exclaimed, "Long live and triumph Charles Augustus, crowned by God, the great and peace-bringing Roman Emperor." Thus, the Carolingian Empire was born. Built on personal power and conquest, the Carolingian Empire was destined to fall apart. Moreover, at that time people didn't yet know how to maintain control over such vast territories. After Charlemagne's death on 28 January 814, his only son Louis the Pious inherited the imperial crown. Wishing to secure the hereditary rights of his sons, he divided the empire among them. The sons in turn, after their father's death in 840, and as a result of numerous internal conflicts, finally divided the empire. This division was formalized by the Treaty of Verdun in 843. According to it, the empire was split into three parts. Lothar, the eldest brother, received the central regions, including the western part of Austrasia, Frisia, Alsace, Burgundy, Provence, and northern Italy. He also inherited his father's imperial title. Louis the German, the middle brother, received lands mostly east of the Rhine, that is, eastern Austrasia, Franconia, Saxony, Alemannia, Bavaria, and several others. Charles the Bold, the youngest brother, received lands west of Lothar's central regions, that is, a small northwestern part of Austrasia, Aquitaine, Septimania, the Spanish March, and so on. Thus, three new kingdoms emerged, the most interesting of which for us is the East Frankish Kingdom. The period of East France's existence is often limited on one side by the Treaty of Verdun in 843, and on the other by 919, when the term Regnum Teutonicorum, the German kingdom, was first mentioned. The main feature of East Francia was that it essentially consisted of five large tribal duchies: Saxony, Bavaria, Franconia, Swabia, Thuringia, and later Lorraine, relatively homogeneous in tribal composition and semi-independent principalities. The first king of East Francia was Louis II the German. He fought quite successfully on the eastern border of the state, subjugating the Oberates and established suzerainty over Great Moravia. In the west, despite unsuccessful attempts to restore the Carolingian Empire, Louis II managed to secure at least his brother Lothar's lands in the form of Lorraine. Then in 876 Louis III the Younger became the second king. He began his reign by defeating the West Frankish army of Charles the Bold, thereby retaining Lorraine for Germany. A more serious problem was the Vikings, who from the mid-9th century regularly and with impunity ravaged the northern German lands. Under Louis III, organizing a decisive defense against the Vikings proved unsuccessful. Unlike the Roman Empire or other centralized states, the East Frankish kingdom did not have an unfiled legal and administrative system. The duchies were governed based on local traditions, which increased fragmentation and created problems, for example, in mobilizing military forces. East Francia experienced its greatest rise during the reign of King Arnulf. Arnulf of Carinthia was the illegitimate son of King Kalman of Bavaria. He raised a revolt against Louis III, seizing power. Why do I call his reign the greatest rise? Because he managed to subdue the tribal dukes under his authority and repel the Normans. But most importantly, in 895 Arnulf conquered Italy and was crowned emperor, thus beginning the nearly 1,000-year history of combining the titles of Emperor of the Roman Empire and King of Germany. After Arnulf's death in 899, his minor son Louis IV the Child became his successor. Too young to rule, he was under the full control of the larger German princes and bishops. The power of the tribal dukes strengthened again, as the situation was further worsened by continuous wars with the Hungarians, who completely destroyed the defense system of the state's southeastern borders. In 911, after dying from illness, Louis IV became the last Carolingian on the German line. At the council in Forchheim, the princes of East Francia elected a new monarch, Konrad I, who also didn't stay long on the throne and died in 918. The kingdom was engulfed in crisis. The new monarch was Henry I the Fowler, but because some feudal lords did not recognize him, an internal conflict began between Henry and the feudal opposition supported by Arnulf the Bad, Duke of Bavaria. Interestingly, in the annalistic records of this event, the expression Kingdom of Germans, Regnum Teutonicum in Latin, was mentioned for the first time, which is often considered the moment when a new state, the Kingdom of Germany, emerged in place of East Francia. The territory under Arnulf the Bad's control was essentially limited to Bavaria and its surroundings. Given that in 921 Arnulf had to recognize Henry as king. The name Kingdom of Germans or Kingdom of Germany was not used elsewhere, and Henry I, himself being the legitimate ruler, was referred to as the King of the East Franks, Rex Francorum Orientalum in Latin. In 936, after the death of Henry I, his son Otto I was elected King of East Francia. Under Otto, it became clear that an empire was in the making. Additionally, he defeated the Hungarians at the Battle of Lechfeld, which boosted his authority. Thus in an empire, during his coronation, Otto appeared not in Saxon attire, as was customary, but in Frankish clothing. The coronation took place not in Regensburg, but in Aachen, which was once the capital of Charlemagne's empire. Otto actively supported missionaries and the Christianization of the Slavs and established archbishoprics in Mainz and Cologne. Eventually, Otto figured out how to sideline the feudal lords who had elected him. He allied with the Church and made it his foundation. My power is not from force, but from God. All this led to Otto arriving in Rome and declaring himself Emperor of the Romans, even though the Byzantines considered themselves the true Roman emperors. With the Pope's blessing, a system of a state church was created. In 962, Otto not only established a new state, but also created an entirely new Christian world.